And so you're pretty open about the fact that yourself and Frederico, you're not businessmen, you're scientists, basically, and your background is in research. Initially, the reason for getting this application developed was frustration with the data, as we just spoke about. How much of a challenge was, we talked about how research is expensive, particularly in diabetes, with all the technology and laboratory equipment you'll need to run tests and so forth. But how hard was it to raise funds to get this startup off the ground? And what did you learn along the way?
This has been a really good experience, which I didn't ever expect to have had. As you said, I was an academic. I was just doing research in labs, just kind of doing like projects, chasing money for research grants in order so that I can do the projects that I found interesting or felt that I needed to be done. This did come through frustration from not having a solution that we saw needed to be there. And the way that it happened was there was this accelerator in Switzerland from a group called the Diabetes Centre Bern, and they were looking for ideas around CGM and diabetes, like to kind of help people around that. And we submitted an idea, which was kind of an early version of this idea. It was just Fede and myself. We didn't get very far through the competition at all. We got kicked out in like the first round. We didn't complete most of the questions on business or business plan. It's kind of a joke at the moment where like our first pitch deck just had like these flowers which grew larger, showing like the amount of money that we expected to gain throughout the business, where it wasn't a joke. We just didn't know what we were doing. And the organizers of this, they got in touch and we had a conversation, and they said, we like you, we like the idea, but it's quite clear you don't know anything about business. So we then rethought the thing. We did like some courses and stuff, and then we brought in another two colleagues who were very close friends of ours, and we've known for quite a few years, one of whom had an MBA and is very like kind of clued up on the business, completely changed everything round, and decided to leave our jobs and our positions to focus on this full time, which was quite a big risk. Fede had a baby, I think like on the first week we started this. So we went from something which was like kind of stable to complete instability. He had a newborn at the time when we were trying to like set up this thing, which was the most difficult situation. We didn't have salary. We haven't had regular salaries for like best part of a year. Like we're bringing in different things, and I think that's an important thing to kind of acknowledge as well. Like just you just put yourself in a situation of uncertainty and constant, like, are you going to survive as a company? Are you going to be able to keep going? But you just have to keep the conversation going honestly between the four people, make sure that everybody is okay money wise, like enough to survive, pay their rent and stuff like that. Fundraising has been really difficult because we also started at a time period when funds were not so easy to come by. Within like the fundraising world in startups generally, things have been a lot more difficult the last kind of year and a half compared to what it was like 3 years ago. It was a bit easier to raise money. But yeah, just trying to be creative, trying to convince people that this is the right thing. You get days where you question whether it's the right thing to be doing. You're getting rejections like every single day. The number of people who we've pitched to who don't know anything about diabetes, who then turn around and say, well, I know somebody who has diabetes. They're like my brother-in-law, and they don't do anything. They just like, I think they just like take something or inject themselves like once a day, and then they don't think about it, and there's nothing more to it. So you're trying to sell something, or kind of sell an idea to bring in funds to people who aren't experts. And you've got to kind of get that like emotion behind it, that reason that people want to support your idea and invest in it. But we're still here. We've survived over a year. We now have the first product out. We're building it very rapidly. Yeah, so I would recommend it as an experience, even though it's extremely difficult. You learn a lot, and if you have a good team as well, it's very enjoyable.
I imagine it's translating the amount of knowledge that someone like you has in their head, trying to translate that into an app is one thing, but then trying to help your audience understand what you're trying to achieve through the app is another thing as well. And I guess relaying that message through your marketing.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I've realized with this, which I never expected to do, I was working in academia, but this is an opportunity to build something that people can have in their hands and then they can use, and you're doing something extremely rapidly. You compare this to academia, where the process of academia is really slow. You've got to like kind of come up with your ideas to do something, and then you conduct the project, and then you publish the paper. Best case scenario is the paper turns out very well, and it gets incorporated into some kind of guidance, and then one day further down the line, like a patient might use that in their life because it's part of the building block that's built up like the guidelines behind something. But what we're doing with this startup is trying to build it's a digital product, but it's like a physical thing that we are imagining that we can put into people's hands that will have like a daily impact that we hope is actually going to kind of solve a problem. We're able to adapt the plan extremely like rapidly. We're very agile because we're just kind of like, the number of times we've changed the plan of what we're focusing on, what the exact goal is. The other week, I was traveling somewhere, and there was somebody who I met who had type 1 diabetes, and he showed me that he had downloaded it and he had it on his phone, and he said that he was using that. And that was really satisfying to see that somebody was using something that you'd created. So that's something else that's really nice about this experience. You're able to do it so much more rapidly, and hopefully actually create something meaningful. Academia and things like that, yeah, it's great. You can have a big impact, but it's so much more slow, and you're really just like one cog among many cogs that's like just part of this whole mechanism. But in something like a startup, I mean, maybe our idea will completely fail or something, but we hope not, and we're completely determined to see it through, and we're hoping that the solution that we have in mind will help people like on a practical basis.
Can I ask what the price point is? I know a lot of people living with diabetes. Diabetes can be an expensive condition to manage. Seeing endocrinologists and specialists, CGMs, pumps, buying your test strips, insulin. It's a really expensive condition. So I imagine for them, they don't want another cost. So what's your kind of price point, and has that been a challenge trying to find, or doing surveying and that kind of thing to find out what people are willing to pay for these applications, and what's your kind of model for generating income?
Yeah, absolutely. Diabetes is expensive. There's all of these things, like even having snacks and things, making sure that you have those things always with you. All of the kind of additional things that you have to pay on top. So the dashboard is free for clinicians. The reason that we want to do that is to completely eliminate any barrier for clinicians taking that on. And then for patients, it's $2.99 a month. What we're working towards is reimbursement, so that the patients will be able to get it for free via their health insurance, depending on where they are in the world. The other thing that we're wanting to do is, because the platform is free for clinicians, we're hoping that a lot of them are willing to take on the cost on behalf of the patient, because it's just $2.99 a month. A lot of the clinics we've been speaking to in Switzerland have said that they have budget where they can kind of purchase a number of seats for people. And yeah, so we can eliminate that as much as possible. I do admit that $2.99, although it's cheap, is something that if you don't live with this, you don't have to pay. So if we can find a way whereby that's eliminated from the patient entirely, either through reimbursement or the clinician taking on those costs, that's what we're aiming to do. In terms of the competitors out there, we've tried to place ourselves much cheaper, because if we create something that's beneficial for a lot of people, with something like this, it can scale, and you can bring in quite a lot of money over lots of people. We want to kind of reduce the barrier of cost as much as possible.